Welcome to the Ringer NBA show. This is the Corner 3. My name is Kevin O'Connor, and I am stoked to be joined live in person here in beautiful Los Angeles with Ringer Associate Editor Danny Chau and Ringer staff writer Jonathan Tjarks.
I'm here. I'm getting goosebumps hearing us in person. I always get over the microphones.
I know. It feels so good to be here together in person. This is our first one in person during the entire season, right?
Since the draft, I think.
Since last year, I believe. There's the post-draft pod that we did last year. And today.
Okay, so you look great, by the way. You're taking care of yourself. I can tell, man.
So do you, Tjarks. It's great to see you in the flesh.
LA is treating them very well.
I did cut a couple of pounds, but I do love my Ringer shirt that I'm wearing. Today, you guys submitted your questions through Twitter for a special NBA Draft exclusive mailbag edition of the Corner 3. So we're going to start off with a question from Valmitten Fung. What a name. Where does the consensus top three in this draft, Zion Williamson, Ja Morant, and RJ Barrett, compare to the past two draft classes? So that's 2018, Ayton, Bagley, Doncic, and then 2017, Fultz, Bol, Tatum. And then he also followed up, if you could construct a 3-year big board, where would they stack up? So I guess starting generally, Danny, how does this top three compare to these past two drafts?
I mean, 2018 is clearly a number one for me, but what do you do with Zion, who is probably the best freshman we've ever seen?
I think
how does that weight?
That to me is like the first question. Like, really, it's Luka versus Zion, right? That's the first question.
As the best prospect of the past 3 years.
Yeah.
I think for me, if you're going by your evaluations heading into the draft, I would rank them like this. And this is, again, heading into the draft. So I would have Doncic 1, Zion 2, Fultz 3, Tatum 4, Ayton 5, Barrett 6, Morant 7, Bol 8, Bagley 9. That's the way I would have ranked these guys based on evaluations heading into the draft. And obviously now Fultz would be 9th if you're taking these guys from where they're at now in their careers. But I don't love Barrett or Morant. I think they're good prospects, but I don't value them nearly as much as I did Fultz, who looked the part as a two-way, long, big guard who could create off the dribble for you and play make and defend multiple positions. I don't value either of them as much as Tatum, who looked like a go-to scorer potential. And granted, that year we had different opinions on him, but even at this point it's undecided with him. But I think the go-to scoring potential was higher than with Ayton. Again, a guy super efficient near the rim who projected potentially as a good defender, and he made great progress as a rookie, as we saw. Barrett with his inefficiencies as a scorer and his poor decision-making, and Morant with his really frail, thin frame and iffy jumper. I would just slot those two guys behind Fultz, Tatum, Ayton. That doesn't mean they're not poor prospects. They just have some flaws that do stick out, Danny.
Yeah, but I mean, really, I think we're kind of burying the lead here. What do you where do you stand on the Doncic Zion debate? How close is it for you?
I think when you consider the importance of the three-point shot in today's league and shot creation from the perimeter, I think that's where I give Doncic not a big lead, but a noticeable difference. If this is the Kentucky Derby, what is a two-length lead? It's not like a photo finish, but it's close. and I that's where I'm at with Doncic, where just his playmaking ability and his shooting ability, as you've seen all season, Tjarks, that gives me an edge over Zion, who is more just the freakish athlete who's going to be a great defender, rim runner, and he can handle the ball too. But I just think Doncic, for today's league with his perimeter skills, is a little bit more important.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you look at the floor, Luka's floor is like that shot creator. He's basically that Harden Steph kind of player where he creates a bunch of threes for himself, a bunch of threes for his teammates. That kind of player supercharges an offense. Zion, I wonder, do you think the LeBron thing is crazy?
Like
just
a LeBron
comparison?
So, I do, sort of. I think even LeBron in high school, remember watching him playing on ESPN in his junior and senior year of high school. He didn't have a great jumper, but he could create off the dribble from the perimeter. And with Zion, Zion's a tremendous prospect, one of the best prospects that we've seen in our lifetime. But there's still the concern with his shot creation ability. He's very left-hand dominant. He doesn't have a jumper off the dribble, and those are skills that to reach that LeBron level, you have to have that.
But I think that given the way that we see the league now, and given the way that positionless basketball has kind of taken over in kind of mainstream consciousness, and the way that most people conceive of the league, the idea of Zion playing center sooner than later kind of intrigues me in terms of those kind of deficiencies in his game not necessarily meaning as much as they might have when LeBron started out. You know, like, I think Zion might have enough skills to kind of offset that.
So I go back. Do you remember this game, the Pittsburgh game, when Trey Jones got hurt and Zion ran point?
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching that game. And he had 7 assists.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, my God. Like, this is happening. Like, and then after that, he goes back to power forward. He's playing off the ball. I looked at his numbers. So this is a very small sample size. Okay. But who cares? Zion,
Who
the pick
cares
and roll.
about
pick and roll
all
ball
this
handling. You know what his
sample size
percentile
stuff?
was in the pick and roll as a ball handler? In the college
90
basketball?
plus, right?
99%.
Interesting. I mean, so
I mean, him as a role man, you know, often he rolled in college. He never
not
rolled.
often at all.
He wasn't even on the leaderboard.
issues. And I think that's like, there's always going to be the Zion LeBron comparison because it's just their freakish athleticism and just their body size and everything else. And also their games, though. That's the thing. It's like he's not a playmaker like LeBron's level, but he's still, for his size and for his position, somebody who, like, we talk about this all the time. Whether he's the guy handling the ball in the pick and roll or the guy who's on the short roll, he can do the Draymond Green thing where he can put the ball in his hands or have him screening and rolling and then just creating against the defense and devastating them with his either lob dunk ability, his ability to finish with finesse, or his ability just to find and locate an open shooter. Like, he didn't have great spacing at Duke. And like you said, he didn't have the opportunity to always do that. But in the NBA, he's going to have chances to do that. And that's like the difference between him and Luka Doncic, where Luka's going to be that ball-dominant force.
Right.
Zion has a little bit more offensive versatility, I think, besides the fact his shot off the catch still is, we'll see what level he reaches.
So then my question is, if Zion can become a Draymond Green-like player and possibly even, like, do that better given his physical, like, superiority, is that, let's say Zion gets paired with a Steph Light, who can do approximatly what Steph can.
See, that's
Not
why
as-
the Atlanta thing,
Yeah.
I was so upset.
I know.
Right.
Oh, my. Can you imagine?
That would have been a tremendous fit
Now,
for him.
who would be more valuable in that situation? Like Zion with that, or Luka without a
Well,
Draymond?
the idea is Luka is that Steph-like guy, but he's 6'7".
right?
Just
exactly.
a big one.
See, to me, like, I guess big picture to me, I think Luka and Zion I put as their own tier.
Oh, yeah.
Else, I think
Absolutely.
behind them. And I think once you're 3, 4, 5, I could see you could throw Trae Young in there. Not pre-draft. Looking at him now,
Yep.
I think you throw Jaren Jackson in there. I think it's really about nothing after
SGA,
that.
Mitchell. There's a handful of guys that, like, if you're evaluating based off today, like if you're ranking people from today forward, obviously Fultz isn't even in the conversation. Right. Sadly, very sad story. Lonzo Ball's probably been knocked down a bit too.
I still believe in Lonzo. I think he's got.
I do too. I really like Lonzo, and with these rankings, I had a hard time between Morant and Ball. I gave Morant an edge over him because of the sheer athleticism. I think Ball's a bit better as a playmaker. Granted,
He's so much
Morant,
bigger.
He's bigger, and that's
And
one
defensively.
That's one of the concerns for me with Morant in this draft, where he's going to be a good player. Anytime you playmake at his level, like, you're not going to fail. You're just not going to fail.
Basketball IQ.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's going to be an NBA player for 10+ years, assuming good health. The question will be is, like, what happens with his jump shot? How much does he improve defensively? Because, like, the effort was not there at Murray State. The body's not there for the NBA level. But when he tried, he was solid enough. Like any,
Right.
any
I mean,
point guard can
if
be.
we're talking about like him and Lonzo Ball's defense was never really brought up.
Yeah,
in his
he was, like,
college
active, like,
Yeah.
but like on the ball, there was.
They're very different players, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, total opposite ends of the
Okay, so
spectrum.
like, how about this? I wonder with me, like, to me, I look at RJ, I see a guy, to me, is number 9 on this list. Like, I'm really low on RJ. Am I too low on him?
Yeah, I believe so, and
Okay.
like that'll bring us into our next question, because relates directly to RJ, because not all of us have Zion, Ja, and RJ Barrett in our top 3, and Daniel Tapp asked, how much stock do you put in Brandon Clarke having the second best box plus minus since 2010 behind Zion Williamson? And I have RJ ranked second on my board. You guys have Zion 1, both of you. And Danny, you have Jarrett Culver 2. And then Ja Morant 3. RJ, you have 5th behind Brandon Clarke, who's 4th. And then Tjarks, you have Zion first, Brandon Clarke second.
I went full hipster with that
You
one.
did. And then Ja third, and then you have RJ all the way back to seventh.
I was throwing darts.
Our big boards are going to continue
Of
changing
course,
over
yeah.
the weeks.
Right,
but,
we're recording
yeah.
this on May 22nd, and it's going to air sometime whenever you're hearing it next week from the time we're recording. But like from where we're at now, based on our evaluations, the question was about Brandon Clarke, and we'll touch on the analytics in a second with BPM. But I guess regarding RJ, I have him second. 5th, 7th for you, Danny. 7th for you, Tjarks. Where are you guys at with him to have them at that point in the draft?
I just don't really believe in him as a primary kind of ball handling big wing. I don't believe in his finishing ability. Like everything that you see his game kind of pointing towards, I don't really see him having the ability to do it very well at the NBA level. Like I think he'll be a solid player. He just has the build. Yeah. He has the body for it. He has the requisite athleticism. But I don't see him having the kind of special touch that's required for him to be the kind of bully ball wing that he purports to be.
Yeah, I feel like he's not that athletic either. Like he's a good athlete, but in terms of what you were saying,
space.
yeah,
in space.
In terms of like the way he plays, he kind of relies on being the best athlete on the floor all the time. And I feel like RJ's good, but like he can be good somewhere else on someone else's team. I wouldn't want to deal with it, honestly.
So in other words, like what happens in the NFL draft and the NBA draft is a lot of teams will just have rankings of guys that they'll take. Like there might be a team that does not even have RJ on their board because they're just like, we're not going to take him. We're just not going to bother investing in him. He can be somebody else's problem to deal with. Then obviously that happens really in the NFL draft 4th, 5th, 6th round where you just have maybe 150 guys on your board. In the NBA draft, maybe you only have 40 on your board. But like regarding like lottery picks, for you having him at that point, he's just not a guy you would want to invest in then because of those flaws.
Yeah.
I just feel like RJ needs the ball in his hands, and I'm not sure he's worth the investment of having the ball in his hands. I don't really believe in his jumper really, and to me,
see, for me, like I think with him, 18 years old. 6'7", strong body, and he has been great at every level. Like he had a really good year at Duke. He did not meet expectations, and he had some really like annoyingly frustrating turnovers and decisions that he made on the floor. And like I think a lot of the focus with RJ was on those. It's just annoying mistakes. Like it's a pain in the ass to watch him sometimes. But he also had moments where like this dude at 6'7" was just whipping the ball around the floor. He can kick out threes after driving with a clogged lane. And projecting him forward, I sort of look at him as like a big guard, like a big point guard more than a wing. I think if RJ with his ball handling ability as a passer, I think that's going to develop for him over time with more spacing. I think his at-rim finishing should improve. I think also when it comes to his shooting, I have concerns about his jumper as well, as anybody will. He shot only 66% from the free throw line, 31% from three.
He wasn't shy about it, though.
He was not, no. And the thing is with him, though, is like he is at least a shot creator. He is somebody who can create shots for you. And look, I think compared to Brandon Clarke, who I have ranked 10th, I love Brandon Clarke. I thought 10 was high for him, but apparently not compared to you guys. I just think with Brandon Clarke,
No way.
so
Sky's the limit.
Clarke to me is more like a super role player where, and like this is where I touch on draft philosophy here,
Yeah.
where Brandon Clarke to me is the guy who, he is somebody that you can plug and play into any type of situation, and he's somebody who can use as a role man, somebody who's supremely athletic, who's like a good passer for his position, but he's also like 23 years old, and I think there's upside for him to be better than he was in college at Gonzaga. However, I just would have a hard time ranking him ahead of RJ Barrett, who's 5 years younger, a far better shot creator, a far better playmaker with these like supreme potential star skills. Like there's a superstar path for RJ Barrett. There's not for me with Brandon Clarke. He's
Okay,
more a
so-
super role player.
See, for me, I guess, like, when I look at Brandon Clarke, obviously 2 is high. This is me throwing darts. I look at 2 things. To me, like, he reminds me of Sean Marion.
Yeah.
That's the kind of guy I'm seeing him as. And here's where, like, it's so totally a gamble. I look at his shot at San Jose State. Like, if you go and look at his shot at San Jose State, he is literally, like, the worst shooter of all time.
One of the worst looking strokes I've ever seen.
It's like, it was all over his head. I don't even know what's happening.
It was gross.
It's like a rocket launcher.
Gross.
And so, like, he
looks
would've-
like my jump shot.
Yeah. Unless you were a shooting specialist.
I mean, well, that's why I'm good at
Unless
analyzing
you were a
jump shots.
quarter three guy.
I know a bad jumper when I see it. Trust me. I do. Trust me.
So he went from that, then he goes to Gonzaga. He rebuilds his shot. He's pretty much money from 15 feet now. So I'm looking at that trajectory. I look at his touch around the rim, and I'm gambling that he's going to become a good shooter, which is, I admit, I will recognize is a complete gamble. It might not happen. But see, I look at it like RJ is a path to superstardom. I feel like he has a path to be DeMar DeRozan. That to me is like, okay, that's who he could be. And I'd rather have a super role player like a Sean Marion kind of guy. To me, that's more valuable than DeMar DeRozan, honestly.
I think it's fair.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the points of comparison for Brandon Clarke are Sean Marion, Pascal Siakam. Like, you can see a little bit of, like, Andre Kirilenko, even. He's just a beautiful, like, stunning athlete to watch. His defensive instincts are top tier. And as you were saying, like, he has playmaking chops off the dribble. Like, if he can take the ball down the floor and he can, find the open man. And I just think with all of that, with, what we've been talking about with guys who can create like Draymond in the short roll and everything, there's a lot of value to be had in, a defensive star.
I will admit the wingspan thing really hurt my heart.
Sure.
When he came in at 6'8", that was really disappointing.
Let's give a little background on Brandon Clarke there. So Brandon Clarke, he's 6'8", and his wingspan is identical, 6'8".
Yeah, it's very sad. Very sad.
And for him, he was a junior at Gonzaga, so he's going to be 23 years old as a rookie. Averaged 17 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 27% from 3, 70% from the free throw line, 3 blocks per game. And I think with the wingspan thing, it's interesting because it's like, obviously, that's not ideal for a guy who's 6'8" to have a 6'8" wingspan when he's somebody you would project as like a small ball 5 type, as a 4 type.
Yeah.
You want him playing in the front court. But he's lean. He's not long, obviously. But what he is, as you said, Danny, just a bouncy athlete. Like, and he plays his ass off. Like, that dude plays
and he's
constantly
he's
hard.
a pretty smart
He's
player.
smart,
I
too.
like that combination of athletic ability and basketball IQ. To me, he's like a 6'8" Zaire Smith. It's the same kind of type-ish. And Zaire Smith was 6'4", and he got drafted in the lottery.
Yeah, and that's where with Brandon Clarke, like, to me, he's like a no-doubt lottery pick. Just no doubt about it in this year's class, and no doubt top 10 pick. And part of me feels 10's a little bit low, but I
mean, it's more reasonable.
It's definitely reasonable.
My ranking is very unreasonable.
I know. I just have a hard time. Like, I'm trying to understand, like, why over RJ. Like, I understand the philosophy behind drafting a super role player, but I think with RJ, he's somebody where so many of those flaws were just put under a microscope this year at Duke. This guy has succeeded at every level, for Team Canada beating Team USA before college. Like, he has had a lot of success throughout his basketball life, playing with more spacing in the NBA. I think with RJ, when he's putting in effort on defense, with his playmaking with space, and just developing over time, is someone, again, who's only 18 years old. Like, Brandon Clarke at 18 would not be the number 2 pick.
For sure.
Number 2, like, RJ Barrett at 22, 23, projecting ahead. We're talking about competing with Brandon Clarke and how hard he plays. RJ plays his ass off too. Like, he plays really hard.
Okay, so here's what I'm looking at with RJ. So I'm looking at, like, these teams in the lottery, right? I feel like you put RJ in a team, he's not going to play in New York, right? New York will have no time for that. They have Kyrie and KD. That's not going to happen. He won't. I mean, can you imagine Kyrie and RJ? Like, that's like Tatum times 20. Imagine if Tatum couldn't shoot, right? And Kyrie was like, "Hey, bro, like, you move the ball." So LA, that's not going to happen, right? LeBron. And you look at it like, if he goes to Cleveland, I guarantee him and Colin Sexton have issues. If he goes to Phoenix, will he play out Devin Booker? I don't think so. If he goes to Chicago, Markkanen, Porter, Levine, they don't want to play with him.
I think it can work with Devin Booker.
I feel like Booker's like, give me the ball, and I want the ball.
I think with Booker, like, he's became that, but still, like, at his core, he's still a guy who can run off screens, spot up.
Is that real? That feels like a demotion, though.
Yeah, I mean, for Booker, he's like, I'm the guy.
What if it's an upgrade? And I mean,
Well,
that, like, to have more on his plate, more offensive responsibility off the ball, not less demand on the ball. I think RJ is somebody who can alleviate some of that pressure on him.
I mean, look, Booker is a dude who comes from a very specific school of thought. the Kobe school of thought. I don't
Devin Booker
really
is
know.
not playing a small role to RJ Barrett. That's just not going to happen.
Devin Booker was not this guy in college,
But
though.
he's this guy now.
I
he is
know,
this guy
I
now.
know.
How much money does he make?
But
Max contract?
Devin
No.
Booker said after last season, not this season. After last season, he was like, "I don't ever want to miss the playoffs again."
And
He's
letting
a guy-
RJ run point
and-
will get into the playoffs? No. That means a 5-year rebuild.
I mean, this is also theoretical because the odds are RJ won't even fall to the
Well,
next
I
pick.
think what'll happen is he'll get picked at 3 and he'll be traded somewhere else. But I just worry with RJ. I worry he has to be the man. And I feel like wherever he goes, whatever team he's on, the players that are on this team now will be better than him. They won't want to deal with it. And he can't be awful because he can't shoot. So I feel like he's just going to be a chemistry problem wherever he goes.
I don't know. I think RJ's won at every
Okay,
level.
so, like,
but
Let's say the Knicks, where would you want him to go? If like the Knicks trade this pick, right? Who makes the most sense for RJ? What's the best fit for him in the NBA? You can take a
I
second.
mean, I like him.
I'm
I
saying
like him
pick
for
a
the,
team.
I like him for the Knicks.
With KD and Kyrie, you think that would work?
Yeah, I think I don't even know if they're going to keep him. They might flip him, but like I don't mind him with KD.
With Kyrie,
No,
after what happened
I
in
don't-
Boston this year, didn't we
No.
just watch this whole show?
I don't.
Like,
I don't mind like a high upside player growing with.
you think
KD
he's going to
and
grow
Kyrie.
with Kyrie? Like that's not going to happen.
Oh, so but you're assuming like he's just not going to have a very like he's not going to have a starring role, so he's just going to be
No.
like another guy,
No, I don't
like a
mind
guy
that.
you bring him off the bench. Or you-
Yeah.
He's going to get his shots if he comes off the bench or not. Like he's going to get his shots.
I mean,
I'll tell you that.
and that's the one thing with RJ is sometimes I question how much of it is basketball IQ and some of those poor decisions that he makes, and how much of it is just like I gotta get mine.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you.
I gotta get mine.
I got a
Zion's
good
his.
RJ story. I was just telling him about this. So, growing up, Team Canada, it was always RJ and this guy Simi Shitu, Vanderbilt freshman. He'll be in this draft, probably a late second-round pick. And they were always kind of arguing, like, whose team is this? Like, is it my team? Is it your team? And it was like this constant back and forth. And what turned out, so right before they won the gold medal in Canada, Shitu quit the team. He's like, RJ, you suck. I can't deal with this anymore. You're not that good. I should be the man. And now he's gotten like this rep in the NBA, like, oh, Simi Shitu's an idiot. He's like an egomaniac. He can't handle a role on his team. Maybe Shitu is like 3 steps ahead. He's like, I know this guy isn't very good. He's going to kill the team. I feel like if Zion told RJ
But
this
he
in
didn't.
Duke, that's true. He won the gold medal.
Yeah, they won the gold.
But I'm saying, like, imagine a Duke if Zion told RJ that. Say, RJ, you're not that good. Take a back seat. They'd have been a better team.
RJ is good though. He's been good. He's been good at every level. He was good at Duke. He
But
dropped 23
you
points.
You know what's
8
fun?
rebounds,
You know what's
4
fun about that
assists.
though? We could say the exact same thing he won at every single level with Giannis Okafor. Every single level. He was a champion at every single level of basketball. And he looked the part of an NBA player. You know, he had all the
Sort of.
requisite skills. Wing Giannis Okafor is what I'm saying, I guess.
I'm just saying, I
Go
don't see him
Devils.
in New York. I'm trying to find a team that makes sense for RJ. Even like Cleveland,
Here-
he goes
here-
to Colin Sexton.
I think with like the Okafor winning at every level, winning at level is sort of a fallacy. Like to say
Sure,
that, you know, it's
yeah.
like, it is.
You were just
admit
saying that.
I know. I know. I admit that. I admit I'm pulling these cards out for my support of RJ. But again, like I think the real argument again is like with the skills, the shot creation ability, the effort. I know it didn't happen on defense for him this year because of the offensive load. But like the effort level, the intensity, the work ethic off the court, everything you hear about how hard he works
Yeah,
on
he
his
does
skills,
work
the
hard.
amount of resources Team Canada has put into him medically, skill-wise, everything, health, nutrition, like he has a lot behind him
It's less
to succeed.
it's less that for me. It's more just the natural like level of touch and just his spatial kind of
he
awareness
doesn't
for
have
me.
great touch at all.
He doesn't have great touch, and that's kind of really important for me, especially when he's not as good of an athlete as he was at the college level. And so when he's trying to finish over guys, he's not going to be able to with as much regularity as he did in college. And he didn't really finish with too much regularity given his, physical attributes in college anyway. So I think that's kind of more where I'm leaning with.
You guys are with Simi Shitu on RJ Barrett, and I am with
Actually, I'll say one
the New
more
York
thing.
Knicks.
One thing I've heard like RJ wants to be the best player of all time, which is like such a scary thing to hear about a guy who isn't that good. It's like,
Well, and Ja Morant called himself a point guard. Confidence can be a good or a bad thing.
hey, I mean, I don't mind Ja talking like that.
I mean, look,
Ja's great.
Tjarks, we've been wrong on this. We've been on the wrong side of history with Jason Tatum. So,
Have we though? Isn't it changing? We're relitigating. Oh, we should probably go on before we talk about Tatum for another hour.
Yeah, you guys are with Simi Shitu, and I am not. Speaking about late round gems, we were asked by many people about who are some potential steals in this year's draft. Tjarks, Simi is one of the guys that you have highlighted as a potential steal in this draft. Who is he, and what is it about his game that makes him a potential steal?
Okay, so he was a 5-star freshman forward at Vanderbilt. Basically, his season got sunk. He was playing with Darius Garland. Garland tears his knee. He's out for the year.
5 games in.
Yeah, and then Vanderbilt didn't have enough talent. Their coach got fired. I look at like a 5-star guy like that. Shitu is very athletic. He's very raw, but to me, he's a guy like if he goes to G League for 2 years, works on his jumper, works on his feel for the game, his athletic ability and his skill set to me is very interesting.
He's a 6'10" dude who can bring the ball down the floor. That's automatically very, very attractive.
And he was playing on a torn ACL right after torn ACL. Like, so I mean, I don't know. He's very raw. He probably busted out of the league, but he's a guy I think worth a shot in the second round.
How about you, Danny?
I'm going with a guy who probably most people haven't heard of. A guy named Alen Smilagic. Alen Smilagic.
I'll let you take that name.
Yeah, so he was drafted 4th overall in the G League draft last year. 19 years old. Plays for the Santa Cruz Warriors in the G League. And there's been a lot of talk over the past couple months about how the Warriors are basically trying to hide him from the rest of the league by putting him in this G League. They didn't send him to the showcase, to the G League showcase, so none of the other teams really got to see what he did. He's this 6'10", really skilled guy. He can bring the ball up the floor. He has a lot of like DeMarcus Cousins-y, like, oh, I'm gonna bring the ball up the floor and I'm gonna like hoist the 3 type of thing. He played 3rd division Serbian ball before playing in the G League, so this dude's basically an unknown player. He hadn't played in any like high-level competition before that, but he's been killing it in the G League.
He's a cool story at the very least in terms of the way the Warriors are using the G League to hide a guy.
Yeah.
It's a pretty interesting story no matter what happens with him, just the way like the league could move forward as a developmental tool, I think.
The guy who stands out to me is Daquan Jeffries.
He's the guy everyone's talking about. He's getting a lot of buzz.
From Tulsa. He's a 6'5", near 7 foot wingspan, wing forward type. I think when you're looking, you and I talked about this in our NBA Slack recently, Tjarks, like finding like other PJ Tuckers. Like I think it's easier said than done to find guys who can do that because of the mentality. But from the body and from the game, Jeffries is the type of strong-bodied wing who can play big, and he's an intense defender. He's someone who plays hard, somebody who's a smart player and makes good decisions on the floor. And he hit spot-up threes at an above-average to good rate. He shot 37% from 3 this year, 76% from the line. And those aren't great numbers necessarily, but it's solid enough, and I think his shot is projectable enough where he can be a good shooter and a versatile defender. And what more could you want in today's league?
Were you at the Combine, KOC?
I was not.
I've heard he was one of the big risers at the Combine.
Yeah, he had a good Combine. I like Jeffries a lot. I think he's somebody, to me, I have him ranked 29th.
I like that.
I think
nice.
I think he should be a first-round pick. Then, this is the type of thing with the draft. It's like everything we're talking about, like I just said with Jeffries, it's like, that sounds like a guy who should be a lottery pick, especially this year with like a weaker class and a lot of guys with questions. And one of the guys who has a lot of questions is Bol Bol. And we were asked by a couple different people about him, Nickety Nick and Slow Bamba, who said...
Which is actually a great nickname for Bol Bol. That's fantastic.
Sounds like the name of my band that I'm going to start. How high could Bol Bol go, Tjarks?
I mean, first off, are we doctors? Like, I don't know. Right? Like, what's up with his foot? I mean, like, he has serious health issues, serious medical red flags, and that's, like, the number one thing boring in his game is, like, well, how healthy is he? I don't know. Right. I'm not a doctor.
Yeah, I think with Bol Bol, like, that's the only question, really, is with the health. I think with his game, every player has holes. Every player has questions with him, like his frail frame, like how much can he actually defend stronger bodied centers? Like how
his center of gravity is so high. He has such long,
he's like a seesaw.
long legs. Yeah, it's all legs, all arms. I mean, his wingspan's tremendous. It's
7'7".
7 foot.
And he can stroke threes.
Yeah, 50% from 3 in the small sample size at Oregon.
How many shots, Danny?
I don't
like
know.
10.
It
was 20. It was 25 shots.
He played like 10 games.
Yeah.
But yeah, like
he can shoot though. Like it's like he's not going to shoot 50%.
He can really stroke it.
But
sure.
he
That's
has
not even a question.
touch on floaters,
Incredible
on layups.
touch.
He can shoot. Like there's no doubt about that. He's going to at least be an above average good shooter.
It's really funny. Like if you watch some of his high school like highlight mixes, he does a lot of bringing the ball up the floor, and he has like little tricky like ball handling maneuvers. They won't amount to anything in the NBA, but it's just like he has confidence.
I mean, it's very Thon Maker-ish, right? Like the high school video thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But he's really slow. There's not a lot of like lateral or
He's
even like
he's
up
not
and down
mobile,
quickness.
and I worry about him defending a lot of space. As you mentioned, the high center of gravity, his just like really skinny legs. Like, I just don't see him defending effectively on the post against bigger guys, or even against like big wings for that matter.
Yeah, but you look at a guy who's 7'4", right?
He's listed at
7'2" and a
I
half.
feel like he's taller than
7'7",
that.
with a 9'8" standing reach.
And
I mean,
who
there's no
shoots
doubt.
threes at 50%. Some team will probably look at that and be like, hey, if we're going to swing for the fences, let's swing for the fences.
Yeah.
I mean, the role is there no matter what, bench
Yeah.
shooter. If he can stay healthy, which is the thing. Like, I mean, 7'2" guys don't stay healthy to begin with. I mean, have a broken foot.
I mean, I think the difference between him and Michael Porter last year is I remember when I interviewed Tim Conley for the Nuggets article I wrote this year, he said with Porter, the only question was health. Like that's it. The game was there. But with Bol Bol, it's not just health. It's a question about work ethic as well.
I mean, the difference is Porter's an incredible athlete.
Well, yeah, I know that, of course, but like with Bol Bol, it's also work ethic, and scouts have long questioned how hard he actually works, how much he actually loves the game. So it's like you have durability concerns and work ethic concerns. I would be not surprised if he went top 10 because of the sheer talent level. Somebody maybe falls in love with him, but I wouldn't take him top 10. I have him ranked 20th on my board. Tjarks, you have him 21st, and Danny, you have him 14th. I think 14th, 15th is fair. Late lotto, mid first, for someone just to take a swing on him. But
you know what's kind of funny? I feel like if Orlando had already taken Mo Bamba, he's a perfect Orlando pick, isn't he? Like,
Yeah, right.
Super tall, long guy, shooting.
Let's go back to the combine real quick. We have a question from Hunter. Who is the biggest stock riser from the NBA combine?
Well, I'll give a shout out to Nick Claxton, the Georgia big man. He was kind of off the radar all season. I knew nothing about him, honestly. And then as his name come up there, I went back. I was like, oh, they played Texas. They played Jackson Hayes. So I watched that game. Like, Claxton's just more skilled than Jackson Hayes, in my opinion.
He played point guard.
I feel like it's not even really
Georgia,
arguable, right? Like, in
essentially,
terms of like his basketball skill level is just higher right now. He's a good athlete. He's got size. Like, this guy, I think, will stick in this draft because his theoretical skill set is pretty intriguing.
Claxton, 7 foot tall, 7'3" wingspan, averaged 13 points last season, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, only 28% from three, only 64% from the line. With him, it's like you said, Tjarks, he's skilled.
It's like if Capella had handles. What if Clint Capella had handles?
He ran point for Georgia's offense a lot of the time. Like, he ran pick and roll as a near 7-foot player, and I think with that skill set, again, like, to me, he's a first-round talent. It's still decided if he'll actually stay in the draft or not, but I think with the combine he had where he showed off his versatility, switching screens, defending guards and wings, and that was like the cool thing about the combine is you were required to switch all screens on the ball.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know. That's awesome.
So it's like with Claxton, he looked great. He looked good defensively, and if you're looking for a guy in today's league, that's what you want a big to do, is to be comfortable defending on the perimeter. And Claxton, the question will be with him is like what level of his shot reach, how reliable will he be defending how reliable will he be shooting from the perimeter when he's off the ball, and also like he's still pretty thin, so like how will he handle the Embiids, the Jokic types of bigs of the world? But like to me, he's a no-brainer first rounder.
In terms of like the combine measurement numbers, though, like I understand all of the kind of sadness that Brandon Clarke didn't really have too great of a measurement in terms of like his anthropomorphic numbers, but man, his lane agility. It's faster than Drew Holiday's. It's faster than John Wall's. And this dude's going to be playing small ball 5.
Clarke?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it faster than Taco Fall?
Nice.
It better be.
Taco Fall to me is the number one prospect of the time.
Well, we had someone on their staff who will not be named in our Slack was talking as a first-round pick, right? We won't say who it was.
Someone who will not be named.
Also, before I forget, I went by look at it. I gotta give a shout out to my guy Ben Room at the Stepien. He has like Nick Claxton like takes for days. They're really well written. You want more Nick Claxton? Check that out. He's a pretty interesting guy.
Is Claxton like a lotto pick for him? Or?
I think so. But he was saying he might go back to school because he has Tom Crean at Georgia now, and they have like a top 2 class coming in.
Edwards is coming there.
So like if he comes back with a really stacked team, maybe he actually is a lottery pick because his team is really good next year. Because one of the things I guess is worth pointing out, like honestly, where there's 65 Power 5 conference teams. If you're a guy who's on a big recruit and you are on a bad Power 5 team, no one's really watching you outside of like these NBA scouts. Like guys like us, we don't have time to watch like Georgia and like Clemson. Like, these teams aren't very good. It's hard to watch them during the season. So a guy that can go under the radar the whole season and no one talk about it.
I think Claxton brings us to a good question from Andrew Del Toro, who asked, which guys have a chance to someday guard Giannis, relatively speaking?
Relatively is the key
like
word
I said,
there.
we're recording this on Wednesday the 22nd. Right now, the Raptors and Bucks are tied 2-2 in the series, and by the time you hear this, we'll know who is representing the Eastern Conference in the finals. If it's the Bucks, I think the conversation is even more timely because in the draft, you need to think about who your opponents are going to be. Who are the teams that you have to beat in order to get to the NBA Finals? And for the foreseeable future, Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Bucks, whether or not they make it, are going to be one of those teams that you have to beat to get to where you want to get. Back to the question from Andrew, Danny, are there any prospects, whether it's lotto guys, late first guys, second round guys, that stand out as players who are potential Giannis containers, not stoppers? You can't stop them, but guys who you can at least put on them and feel comfortable about.
If you're thinking about it, Zion,
right? It has to be.
Because
Zion,
look,
yeah.
you talk about the type of player you want guarding Zion. You want a wide body, you want a big body who can take up a lot of space that doesn't allow Giannis to kind of do that whole, whoop-de-doo, like Euro step. He can't get around Zion. He's a tank. Zion also has the vertical ability to challenge him up top. He's not tall. He might not be tall enough to do it all the time, but he definitely has the strength to at least hold his own.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's as good as you can ask for, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a combination of strength and agility, and also like the mindset to lock in and defend him. Zion clearly projects as one of those guys. I think staying in the lottery, DeAndre Hunter is another one that maybe you could put him on Giannis. And I mean, Hunter, I have my concerns about him laterally. I'm not quite sure he's the defender that he's made out to be. But I think, again, he has the combination of strength and at least mindset to be a guy that you could put on Giannis long term.
I think worth pointing out with Zion. So one thing that's been out there lately, it's like, if he goes to New Orleans, he's just Julius Randle. Change between Zion and Julius Randle.
Yes.
What are the many differences? So in college, Randle averaged, I'm looking at the numbers, 0.5 steals a game, 0.8 blocks a game.
He's a loser on defense in college.
In college, Zion averaged 2.1 steals a game, 1.8 blocks. That's like triple and quadruple the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Zion's defensive ability has been very underplayed because of his offense, but like this guy appears to be a very, very, very good defensive player.
I remember that year you wrote an article on SB Nation about Julius Randle, like the wingspan problem. About Julius Randle. And that year on Celtics blog, I wrote an article about Randle's defense, like looking specifically at his defensive issues, like the focus problems, his inability to read the floor, as well as his short wingspan. It's like I have Randle, like we have Randle as a comparison for Zion, like shades of, because of the offense. It's like left hand dominant, the size. It's like not a knock. In fact, it's actually kind of a compliment because Randle's turned into a good player. But like as you said, Tjarks, the defensive end of the floor is just it's a different end of the spectrum. Randle was an absolute loser on defense in college. I hated watching him. I couldn't stand watching him when he was in college. But Zion projects as somebody who has a chance to be a lane, to be a Draymond-esque versatile guy who can protect the rim for you, who can switch screens for you. When he has the intensity, he has the tools. For Zion, it's going to be about like, where does his mind go? Like, how much because Draymond is a basketball genius.
Yeah, and you also wish Zion had a longer wingspan,
Yeah.
but he makes up for it
the
with
athleticism.
his athleticism and his timing. So.
Also, KOC, we're getting old, man. Talking about these guys from 5-6 years ago. We wrote about them too, man. We're getting up there.
It's and I think there's a handful of other guys just like scrolling through the draft guide, just going through. I think Brandon Clarke, even though he's a little lean, he's somebody that makes sense. PJ Washington, who we'll talk about in a minute, is somebody with his size and mobility makes a little bit sense. Nick Claxton, who we just talked about, somebody you can put on him for these like bigger guys. And in terms of wings, the guy we mentioned earlier, Daquan Jeffries makes sense. Nasir Little from North Carolina, who struggled, but again, long term, he has the strong body. In the theoretical defense, you look.
We're talking about Giannis here. This is getting ridiculous.
Well, I mean, there's
none of these guys.
I mean, you need a big body guy. I mean, not all these guys are going to pan out, but a handful of them could make.
I mean, at that point, let's talk about like Taylor Horton Tucker, who has a 7'1", 7'2" wingspan at 6'2" or 6'4".
I mean, like the number of guys in the guard Giannis, like 2 guys can guard him probably.
There's not many.
Yeah.
I mean, the point is like guys you can at least, as Andrew Del Toro asked, guys who can guard Giannis, relatively speaking. Like, you got to put a body on him. So,
Sure,
like,
okay,
somebody that you can at least put a body on. Let's move on to a question from Creepy Chris.
Hello.
Which
Is this Chris Vernon, by the way? Are you sticking in some questions here, Vernon?
Which of Kentucky's 3 projected first-rounders do you see having the most impactful professional career? So let's go through the 3 of those guys, starting with Keldon Johnson, who is probably the most hyped prospect heading into the season.
Yeah, I guess he was. Yeah, sure.
Certainly the biggest freshman that they had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had it down here recruiting-wise, though.
So with Keldon Johnson, what do you like about his game? What do you
Okay,
not
so
like?
Keldon Johnson's usually your generic 3-and-D template, 6'6", reasonably athletic, decent jump shot, very competitive.
Very competitive.
Yeah.
Plays so hard.
I remember he was the one guy in that Duke game when the opening night when they got crushed, where he was still playing. Everybody else line took their soul. They were like, "Oh my god!" But Johnson was still playing. Like, he's a very competitive kid. But I don't think he's very skilled. I don't think he's very big or that athletic. I mean, to me, just kind of a guy.
It's like he tries hard, but his feet don't move that fast.
They don't move that fast. You definitely don't want him dribbling.
Yeah, I'm not a big.
He's a
fan.
guy, you know?
I have him ranked 32. Tyler Hero, Danny.
Guy who you would hope to kind of become a guy who can create out of pick and rolls, can hit shots, hit difficult 3-point shots. I'm not really sure where I am with him. Like, given all of my hype and love for Kevin Huerter, I'm always looking
Huerter's
for
so
another.
much bigger than
Yeah,
Hero.
Huerter's huge compared to Hero. Hero's like 6'4", 6'5".
And he has a negative wingspan.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, you're always kind of looking for the next, but
The
I
next
don't know if
server.
See, I
that's
worry,
the guy.
like, this is probably very lazy, but, like, Luke Kennard, right? I used to worry about him on the wrong team. Will he just be a bench guy because he doesn't play defense, right? That's my concern.
And the guy that we, all mutually agree, based off our rankings, is the best of the 3 Kentucky prospects is P.J. Washington. This past season, he improved his 3-point shot after testing the waters last year. Shot 42% from 3, still only 66% on the line, but at 6'8", with a 7'2" wingspan, he projects as somebody who can be a versatile defender. He's super mobile, quick laterally. He's a good passer for his position. He improved his shot. He's a good finisher out of the rim, even though he's not like a lob guy. He's a good finisher, and I think with him, there's like up and down effort at Kentucky, and for me, that's like the one hesitation I have with him. But we all view him as a mid-first round pick. I think you have him highest of the 3 of us, Tjarks.
I wonder if I'm too low. I have him, I think, at 8 or something. Double check that. 9? Somewhere.
9. You have him 9.
I wonder if that's too low. I feel like I can just see like a David West, Paul Millsap-ish kind of game. I mean, I think his basketball IQ is fairly high for a guy with his kind of skill set.
It shows in his passing.
And I really wonder if he's going to be a top 5 player in this draft when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I mean, I think with P.J. Washington, he's one of those guys where, like, years from now we could look at and be like, man, how'd he fall so far? Like, he has obvious skills that make sense in today's league, especially with the spacing and the passing on offense, and then with the size and potential versatility on defense. He's just, like, that's what you want.
You can
in
kind of
today's
get
league.
lost with him not necessarily having a standout skill, but he was just one of the most productive players in college basketball.
I guess the concern would be if he goes somewhere where he has to play the 4, they got a bunch of 5s, not a great shooter, he's not playing off the ball, then what is his role? I think that'd be the concern.
I think that brings us to a good question from Ghost Jacobs, who asked, do you have any tips on how to get a deeper knowledge of the game and how to apply it while watching a game? What do you pay attention to? It reminded me of an article I wrote in 2016 where I talked to Mike Schmitz, my friend from Draft Express, who now works for ESPN.
And
then Josh.
This is the name drop part of the segment.
And then Josh Riddell, who works for DS, and then a couple of like anonymous NBA people for that as well. And so that article's titled "How to Scout College Hoops from Your Couch." So just like put that into Google.
That was a good article.
And there's some good feedback from Schmitz, who I think is unbelievable. He's been, by the way, just like as an aside, Mike Schmitz,
a star on ESPN.
I'll tell
He's
you
on
what,
TV now, man.
Like watching the combine is like there's prospects who impress you. Like Claxton looks good. Like, oh man, like looks great on defending on the perimeter. But then you see Mike Schmitz.
Okay.
Dude, like he is a natural on TV. I'm very impressed by Mike Schmitz going from
The
scout to
KOC
TV star.
shout
I'm
out
sorry.
segment. All right, we get it.
I
He's your
don't
friend.
know.
It's cool.
Like the biggest riser of the NBA Combine was Mike Schmitz. That's all I'm trying
All right,
to
somebody
say.
tag him then so he can see KOC buttering him like this.
Anyway, so like I think really one of the main takeaways in that article, Schmitz said like he uses like spotlighting, where like you're like just focusing on one guy, and that's what I did a lot with Julius Randle that year. Where like I'm just watching him the entire game, what he's looking at on the defensive end of the floor, how much he's ball watching, missing like backdoor cuts and things like that. But more than anything else, like the big takeaway from that article for me is again with PJ Washington, like you really have to understand the NBA. Like if you're scouting the draft, you can't just watch the draft. You have to really understand what is needed in the NBA, what is valued in the NBA. And
the game changes fast these days.
Quickly.
Faster
And
than
you
it
need
has
to project
before.
ahead sometimes too. And with PJ Washington, he's somebody that has skills that are extremely valuable in today's league.
I would say KOC, like, I think actually, I really agree with you in terms of spotlighting. To me, what I like to do, like, when I'm watching a guy, like, I'm going to spotlight watch him for, like, 2 or 3 games. But then you have to watch his team. You have to watch, okay, who are his 4 teammates on the floor? What are the lineups he's being used in? What's his role on the team? So once you know who he is, then you have to say, how is his coach using him? Because I think that's where scouting becomes very important, right? Because, like, these numbers are only reflecting their role on the team. And with so many of these guys, like, okay, what's his role on his college team? Now, what's his role in the NBA? And that's really where the scouting comes into play because the numbers only say how he's being used. And let's be honest, most college coaches aren't NBA minded. They're trying to win games now.
Yep.
They're not trying to maximize these guys' skill sets. Sometimes these college coaches want to slow a guy down, keep him in school an extra year. It happens all the time.
And also, like the rules are different. like zone defense is prevalent in college basketball in ways that it's not in the NBA because of the lack of 3-second violation. And not to mention, the 3-point line is shorter as well, which makes a difference in spacing.
Oh yeah, and like your teammates are so much less talented, so there's less space generally to move around the court.
It's a different game, and I think that's one of the challenges as well with like even scouting internationally. But your point about that is important because like even though you might be spotlighting, and watching one guy specifically, it's about like little things that happen afterwards from his teammates, how he interacts with his role in the team. Is it a team that like values cutting? And like you're gonna have to understand the system too, because it's like some teams may not want guys cutting. Some teams cut a lot.
Yeah,
it's little things like that where every system is different, and that's where I have a bit of a hard time personally with like numbers for college because like it's such a small sample of only 30 games for a lot of these one and done guys. Like obviously it's important. Analytics are important, but with college, like for me, it's like it has to be context matters more than anything with the system, with the lineups, with everything else that directly affects said numbers, as you said, Charles.
I would say with numbers for me, what I really looking back on it, like the number, like the free throw shooting. I look back at Fultz and Lonzo in that year, and I wish I had paid more attention to their free throw shooting numbers because those numbers said these guys are not elite shooters. They're shooting threes in college really well. Eye test looks great, but those numbers are saying, underlying numbers are saying, watch out.
And even then, the eye test
I guess for Lonzo,
was not very
for
good
Fultz,
with Lonzo.
but like Fultz was like a 65% free throw shooter.
And that's one of the stats I do like a lot is just simple free throw percentage.
I mean, it's very right. It is what it is.
It has been proven to be more accurate at projecting future 3-point percentage than 3-point percentage in college itself, probably because of the sample size that's usually larger for free throw percentage. That brings us a good question from Mandela. What is a better situation for a young prospect to go into? A contending team where he gets to learn from experienced vets, or a rebuilding team with no pressure where he can play through his mistakes?
I don't think there's a black and white answer.
Yeah,
it's just everything that you had mentioned in the previous question. Like context matters,
everything.
Fit matters. The style of play matters. There are so many guys who have gotten lost on contending teams and to never be seen from again, who probably could have been NBA players on, bad teams.
And then guys who are just waiting for that right situation where they can be surrounded by proven players who can fit them into role. I think we're seeing this right now with Al McKinney with the Golden State Warriors, somebody who, if he's thrown into the fire in a different situation, he may be asked to do too much, maybe is not asked to do anything that works for his specific role with Golden State, spotting up from 3, playing hard on defense, crashing the offensive boards. Simple game. Like, just do that, and you're going to succeed within your role. I think every prospect's different. Every prospect, like, there's different best fits for him in terms of situation. But ultimately, like Tjarks, it's the type of thing where we've seen prospects fail just by falling in the wrong situation, and prospects look better because they fell into a good situation.
You know what's funny? I was thinking of was Josh Jackson. Do you remember when he was like, I want to play in Boston. I want to go somewhere I can be the man, blah, blah, blah. And now it's like, this guy probably needed more disciplined instruction than Phoenix could give him, right? It's so hard to know I think there's no black and white answers.
Yeah, playing time's not everything. I was thinking about this in regards to Matisse Thybulle, the prospect from Washington who had a tremendous college career defensively, who is a solid offensive player, like a 3-and-D type of guy. For Thybulle, to me, it's like I'd love for him to land on a
Well,
contending
you see,
team.
he is, because he held out of that combine.
He
He got a
did.
promise.
He got a
from
promise
someone.
somewhere.
So
Like,
his agent's like, I don't got time for this. I'm going. I want to put him.
because for Thybulle, it's like if you go to a team where like it's bad structure, like there's no foundation, no system.
utility, yeah.
There's nobody who can create shots for you. Like you're going to be a zero on offense, and then your defense is not going to lead to winning if the rest of the team isn't.
Yeah, because
defending.
who cares, right?
Yeah, exactly. What does it matter?
I envision him being a Danny Green-esque player,
Mm-hmm.
and Danny Green was nobody on the Cavs and
Bingo.
became a huge somebody on the Spurs.
I would say for sure, if you're an older college player, it makes more sense to go somewhere you can fit into a small role. Because I feel like these younger guys a lot of times go to a team that's wanting to win. It's like, we don't have time to develop you.
Unless it's a situation, which brings us to another good question from Reddoncic-less. I prefer
Hello, I like it. Shout out Dallas, I think, hopefully.
He says, is there another Landry Shamet in this draft? I'm an older college guy who hits threes, good size. With Shamet, he's somebody who fell into a good situation with the Sixers. And then he fell into a good situation after being traded to the Clippers. Just a great example of somebody who situation played a role into his success as a second-team All-Rookie player. But if he went to a team that like sucked and had no structure and had no shot creator for him, the shots from three wouldn't be there. His improved defense wouldn't matter. Nobody would have recognized that, and it just wouldn't have led to winning. But Shamet was somebody who fell into a good situation. So is there a guy that stands out to you, Tjarks, that could be a Shamet-esque rookie who is late first, early second?
Okay, here's my guy. I really like Cam Johnson.
Okay.
It's the UNC guy. To me, like, that guy is a money shooter. Like, he's not just he's a good shooter. He's a knockdown, elite shooter. The numbers were, I think he was like 97th percentile in coming off screen shooting. That's a guy, he's 6'9". He can stroke the heck out the basketball. He's
46% from three this past season.
Like, to me, like, you put a guy on a good team where he can play off someone, he can score a lot of points because he can attack a three-point line. He is a great shooter who's got tons of size. You can't give him any space. I'm surprised he's so low, honestly. I think he's going to be a pretty good NBA player.
Yeah, he's good. I like him. I don't love him. I think he stands out as definitely a potential steal type. I think Ty Jerome from Virginia is somebody that makes a lot of sense to me as a potential steal.
He can shoot like in any which way from on off threes.
I mean, Ty Jerome's footwork.
He'll be interesting
I dream about Ty Jerome's footwork. It's like there's few players who have better footwork in this year's draft than Ty Jerome.
Yeah, it's just a real crime that he's so slow. He's
Yeah, because
slow.
like the extremes of him will be fun to watch. Because like that's a guy that's like if skill matters, like it'll be that. But if athletic ability matters at all, it's gonna be tough. He's like the two extremes of athletic ability and skill.
I mean, he has a T-Rex arm, 6'4" wingspan, 6'5" in shoes.
Or even I guess he has to, like even compared to like Joe Harris, like another UVA guy. Joe Harris moves way better in time.
Yeah,
and he's also like a beefy dude.
Yeah,
he is. He's strong. I think Ty Jerome is going to be a no doubt solid NBA player. We have in the draft guide we have him compared to a taller Jose Calderon, Malcolm Brogdon, Grievous Vasquez. My buddy Eric Weiss compares him to a Tomas Satoransky type, like a better version of Satoransky.
I feel like those guys are more fluid.
Satoransky is a great athlete.
Yeah, like Grievous also. Those are fluid players. They get where they want to go on the floor.
I think Ty Jerome, like borderline first round pick.
Also, you got any more shout outs, KOC? You want to get out of here?
No, Eric Weiss is somebody who that works in like NBA league circles.
Yeah, we know who he is.
I've met him before. Yeah, you met Eric.
He asked you, he's like, "How's Kevin doing in the ringer?"
It
was very sweet.
Eric is like one of the smartest basketball minds. That, like,
I mean, if he got KOC his big break, he must be pretty smart. Because his eye for talent must be very high.
Eric's good. He knows hoops. How about you, Danny? Anybody stand out?
Yeah, my guy Dylan Windler.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah, out of Belmont, 6'8", 200 pounds. He showed basically every three-point shot in the book during the NCAA tournament when he went off for like 30-some points. He showed a little smooth step-back three. Is a career 40% three-point shooter in his 4 years at Belmont, so you know he can stroke the ball. Surprising, like, hops. He's not, like, the most athletic dude laterally, but, like, he can get up there.
It's as some people might say, he's sneaky athletic.
Yeah, some people might say.
Yeah.
You know?
I think Windler, like, I have him ranked 27th, and I want to rank him higher.
Yeah.
I think with his skill level as a shooter, I think he looks like a Bojan Bogdanovic type, and with his high IQ and his size at 6'7" with a 6'10" wingspan.
Bojan can get buckets. I don't see him as this guy getting buckets in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, Bojan is has developed into a ball handling type.
Right.
But I think with Windler, though, 22 years old, he'll be 23 as a rookie. Look, man, like he plays hard on defense.
See, I
He
just
can
wonder
survive
if
on
you're
defense
going to be a
with his
shooting
size.
specialist, I wonder if he plays enough defense. That's what I worry
He
about. with
plays
shooting.
hard though, at least. Like he's not a zero on that, and I don't think he's not a bad athlete by any means. I think Windler projects as an NBA player because his passing, because his shooting. Again, like he fits the criteria of that Shamet type, high IQ guy who can shoot the hell out of the ball.
Older guy.
Yeah, older experience can come in and make a difference. One guy who comes to mind is somebody who is not ready to contribute at a high level is Cam Reddish. And we have a question from Graham Shaw, who said the draft lottery didn't go great for Atlanta, but is there a player where they're picking who could help cover up Trae Young on defense? And the guy that we all mutually agree makes a lot of sense for them.
Great
we have
fit.
him going to Atlanta in our mock draft in the Ringer NBA draft guide is Cam Reddish, freshman from Duke who disappointed this season, playing behind Zion Williamson and RJ Barrett. However, he does make sense as a fit next to Trae Young, Tjarks.
Man, Cam Reddish, like, I think I'll have to move him up. He's just his skill level. I mean, he doesn't play basketball very well for the most part, but like his jump shot looks so good. He's so big. He moves so well for his size. Like, there's a lot to like. Will he make it to 8? I wonder if he's going to go to a workout where he gets to wow someone and goes like top 6.
Yeah.
I still, in my mind, he's going number 4 just because of the clutch connection.
If they keep the pick,
Yeah,
which
if they
seems
keep the pick.
unlikely, right?
We'll see. I think with Reddish, you and I, Danny, have him ranked 7th. Tjarks, you have him 11th.
See, I'll have him up higher. I can't put him that low. His skills are too high.
I even want to have him higher than 7.
Yeah, I mean, he could be like, in terms of like the guy who's a sleeper in this draft, like Cam Reddish's skill level is ridiculous.
I'm going to end up having him above DeAndre Hunter, who I currently have ahead of Reddish. But I think with Reddish, like, if you're projecting him ahead, again, 19 years old, he'll be 20 as a rookie, so he's a little bit older as a freshman. But again, like the length, 7-foot wingspan, the defense that he played, very switchable on that end of the floor, strong body.
So strong. Yeah.
I think
He's just huge.
Yeah, he's just big. And I think with Reddish, the defense is there as a foundation for his future. The offense is on the floor. He didn't get to show it a lot alongside RJ and Zion, but he can handle the ball. He can pass a little bit. He did it a lot in high school at lower levels. I think moving forward, he's at least somebody, because like in today's league, it's important not just to be able to hit threes. You need to be able to attack a closeout.
You got to put the ball on the floor.
Yes,
for sure.
you have to be able to make a pass off the dribble, find it with, make that second pass, hitting the paint, finding a shooter or a cutter, and Reddish can do that. The question is going to be, everybody looked at him as a potential star. That's going to have to do with how does his at-rim finishing improve?
It was terrible.
It's bad.
Historically bad amongst
Yeah.
NBA prospects.
Very poor, and his shooting ability, 33% from 3 this year, 77%.
But that's high for a wing.
Again, yeah,
77
exactly.
is high.
I think he's going to at least be a good shooter. So Reddish to me looks like a guy who is at least a 3-and-D type of guy who can handle the ball.
His
and
floor is
shoot.
very high.
Yeah,
And we were talking about he has multiple outs. Like he could become like a Rashard Lewis type, right? A Rodney Hood type. Like there's just a lot of different things he can go to in his career.
Yeah, I really like Reddish, and I think, again, sort of touching back on the RJ conversation, like the expectations were so high for him, and he didn't meet them that it made him look worse than he actually did.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like when you're behind the top 2 recruits in the nation, it kind of almost insulates your draft stock. Like there was no way he was ever going to drop past 10, even though he had like a pretty miserable season.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like
I mean, the concern is he's a 6'8" Ben McLemore is the concern.
Yeah, I love that comp in the draft guide for him, and that
Did we give him that one?
Because I love Ben McLemore.
I mean, he's
love
another
him.
guy. You watch Ben McLemore shoot, you're like, this guy is really talented.
His shot looked like it looked like butter every single time.
man.
Another guy, Bobby Wagner, who's producing today's show, is just shouting at the top of his lungs in the corner of this
It's also
room.
just a Bill Simmons comparison.
Yes, is Jeff Green.
Another guy who
Jeff
looks
Green?
like a basketball player,
But
right?
I'll tell you what, though. Jeff Green, as much as I can't stand him as a player and as much as I'm disappointed that he's never reached his clear potential with his athleticism and ability on both ends of the floor, and the fact he's never completely tried on defense, it frustrates
and the
me.
fact that they've given him so many opportunities to play point guard.
Yeah, but Jeff Green still has had a long NBA career.
Yeah. Not only that,
and he has had a successful career despite all the knocks and all the frustrations. He's still in the league and still somebody who contributes. Given that you still wish there was more that he could give.
I mean, Jeff Green was in a Game 7 of conference finals and dang near swung that game.
Yep,
like
exactly.
And how much money has he made?
I'm googling this right now.
Yeah.
Hold on. $67 million.
That's good, man.
I think Reddish is somebody who could, if he has a Jeff Green-esque career.
He's going to play 15 years in the league, right? It's almost guaranteed.
You're going to be disappointed, but he's still going to be a successful player.
We talked about him in comparison to Rodney Hood a couple pods ago, and like I think it's gonna be the same thing. And I'll have like one series where he has 2 points, like this guy's terrible. Then I'll have like 15. It's like what?
That brings us right to a guy who we feel maybe has bust potential from Mikey McCarthy. He says, which of the top, let's say, 10 to 15 guys on each of our boards have the highest bust potential?
I mean, there's a lot in this draft.
I mean, it goes without yeah, there are. And it goes without saying that your 15th guy would be the guy with the most bust potential. But that's not necessarily true because in the draft, you might be willing to take a guy with a bit more risk than you would be somebody who's more of a sure bet. If we were taking guys who were all sure bets, we'd have, like I said, Daquan Jeffries, you'd have him ranked 11th or 12th, perhaps, if you're feeling that confident in somebody like him. I think of my top 10 to 15 or so, I think based off where he's going to be drafted, Darius Garland just comes to mind. And when I say he's not going to be a bust, because bust means you're out of the league. I think with Garland, I love him. I have him ranked 6th. I think his shot creation ability is tremendous. But I think there's a chance he's a Jeff Teague, and like you might be expecting him to be a lot more than that, depending on where he's drafted.
Not even be Jeff
If
Teague.
he can be Jeff Teague, that'd be great.
It's a good player. I think just Garland, he was promised somewhere, it sounds like. We don't know where, but
he's been shut down, right?
Yeah, expectations will be extremely high for him wherever he
Okay,
goes.
you know what's
so not
weird?
quite a bust, but somebody who maybe doesn't meet expectations of the fan base that he goes to.
Okay, this is a little digression, but he's a clutch sports guy. So he's been promised somewhere, sure, but LeBron knows where he's been promised, right? Obviously. All he has to do is text Rich Paul. So the Lakers know he's... It's so weird. Like, that's the weird situation, man.
I'm sure Rich Paul will be happy to tell everybody, who knows? He might.
I mean, he'll tell LeBron.
Sure. Yeah, he'll tell LeBron.
I don't know. That's weird to me. Man.
I'm sure
that's a
it'll
digression.
leak eventually, just like the Chandler Hutchinson promise
Yeah,
did last year going to the Chicago Bulls. I mean, how about you for Danny? Is there anybody, like, maybe not a bust, but somebody that you're like, yeah, I wonder if he's going to meet expectations?
I mean, just given the top 5 hype, like, or maybe not hype, but like the top 5 billing that he's been giving over the past few months, DeAndre Hunter might be a guy who could probably disappoint. Like he has a very high floor as an NBA player. He's big, strong, can hit a 3, he projects to defend up to 3-4 positions. But
See, I saw DeAndre Hunter, and then when I thought of him as Harrison Barnes, I cannot unsee that now. In terms of this guy is like good athlete, not very functional on the court sometimes, very ball dominant, not a great ball mover, not a very rigid player. That really worried me when I saw that comp.
Last question from J5. We need your guys' breakdown of Nikhil Alexander-Walker. He's a better shooter than his cousin, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and he has a similar build. Projected in the mid-first round in most mock drafts, Tjarks said he would take SGA number 2 overall in this year's draft class. So why isn't NDAW, Nikhil Alexander-Walker?
Well, didn't we have him in our top 10 in one of those mocks we did? I think I put him
at
in
some
there.
point. So, but why isn't he a lock for the top 10 then, Tjarks?
Well, he doesn't have SGA's like suddenness. Like SGA gets where he wants to go on the court as like a first step. He's a primary in the NBA. NAW is never going to be that. But I do wonder. Like I look at NAW and I look at his like floor and his skill set. Like, isn't there a chance he has a better career than Jarrett Culver because he has a more defined role? Right, that's possible.
I think one of the things with me with NAW. Just gonna call
Should we still Nah? I don't know how you say that.
I like Nah.
Nah.
I think we fell on something there. Nah.
I don't know. That's kind of
I'm kind of out on it. I'm kind of out of it.
What was your snail mail?
That was for Jokic.
That was a good one. It didn't get the responses.
Snail mail? That's really good. I never heard that one.
I think it's because
I came up with it.
That's a good one. That was great.
3.
I wish that stuck. But
We'll start tweeting
with NAW, I think the difference between him and SGA is like he's a lot leaner too. He doesn't have the same thickness on the defensive end of the floor. So like he's going to be a solid defender, but I'm not sure he has quite the versatility on that end as SGA. And then as you said, Tjarks, he can handle the ball, but he doesn't get where he wants like SGA. He's a couple tiers
he's a role
below
player
him
for
to
sure.
me. Yeah. I mean, I like him. He's a mid to late first round draft pick for me, but not somebody who's a lock in the top 10, but could exceed expectations.
I feel like with him, he's one of the safer because he hits the check marks of he has acceptable athletic ability. He can like shoot the ball acceptably well. He has no real defined holes in his game. No strengths here, but no holes.
Right.
And he's a pretty smart player. 4 assists a game this year. He's pretty good for a shooter.
One guy I want to touch on before we end this podcast. We didn't get a question about him, but Kobe White, Tjarks, you had him as somebody who could. There's like a blurb in the draft guide, like who he could be the potential best point guard in this draft. You have him ranked 4th in your board, freshman from North Carolina. I guess I'm just curious, what is it that you love about his game?
I think I look at him as size, speed, shooting ability, scoring ability. And I think he ran point. He didn't have a ton of assists, but he ran Roy Williams' offense this year pretty well. He pushed the ball every single time. Like he did his job super well. I don't know about his passing. I mean, his defense isn't great. I just feel like I see Kobe White. I think y'all were telling me this, like a more athletic Jamal Murray. I feel like he can be that kind of player, but with actual athletic ability.
I think with me, for him, I don't like him as much as you do. Like he shot 35% from 3, 80% from the line. He can definitely shoot. He has touch, but he has a low release. He doesn't create well off the dribble. He doesn't shoot well off the dribble, I should say. And I wonder with him, it's like, is he more of just a spot up guy, whereas Murray, I think, had that more of shot creation potential. Like with Murray, like the concern was different. Like he had a slower first step. Like how much space could he generate? But with White, the speed's not a question. He's one of the fastest guys in the draft. He can handle the hell out of the ball. But like he has a really low release, and he didn't shoot well. He got blocked a handful of times. To me, like I think he needs to raise that release. And I've gotten burned with my rankings in the past with guys that need to change their mechanics.
So who are you thinking of in terms of with White?
I mean, we have Jamal Murray as a comp for him. We have Brandon.
But I mean,
Knight.
like in terms of guys that you've been burned from like raising the shot.
I mean, like speaking specifically about guys who need to change their mechanics. So, like, I mean, like Justice Winslow is a different type of player, but he's somebody who needed to tweak his mechanics. And Winslow has panned out into a good player, but I expected him to be a better shooter than he has turned into. And he's a solid shooter, but I thought, like, I had him ranked 2nd or 3rd at one point. And with Justice Winslow, like, that does not happen. Stanley Johnson, I did not get burned with him, but he's another guy in that same draft class where it's like, make a couple tweaks, and he can become a good shooter. But again, like, I wonder with Kobe White, granted he has the touch, anytime you're talking about a guy that needs to change mechanics, it doesn't always happen. Right. So with him, like, he's going to be a solid player because of his passing ability, because of his athleticism, and because he can shoot, like, off the catch. But I do question the extent of his upside.
It definitely wouldn't surprise me if he's a guy on his 2nd team or his 3rd team. And that's what I could see a lot of these guys in this draft. One thing I was looking at the other day, I was watching that Seku's like great Dumbaya's great game.
Oh, he was.
And right after I watched, I saw Frank was getting a new agent. And I was like, oh yeah, 18-year-old European, very raw player. If he goes to the wrong team. And then in 2 years, they'll be like, well, he's still only 20 years old. He's got skills. Like, I could totally see Dumbaya or Kobe. A lot of these guys, in 2 years, they don't pan out and they move somewhere else. This feels like very much a second draft kind of draft.
Yeah. And Dumbaya, again, another one of those intriguing guys at 6'8", 6'9", with strength, ability to shoot off the dribble. His shots,
huge game.
Yeah, he's awesome. He showed the flashes of what he could be. And I talked to an NBA guy recently who said to me he saw him years ago when he was like 15 or 16 years old, and he thought he would develop into like a mellow type player, and he has not turned his way. He's more like he looks like Siakam sometimes. Like we
gave him the Aminu comp, right?
We have Al-Farouq Aminu, Trevor Booker, and tranquilized Pascal Siakam because the effort's not always there.
Aminu,
like Siakam.
right? How many teams has he been on? Like 5?
Yeah, exactly.
I could totally see Dumbaya being on his 4th team and figuring it out.
I think we need for him like one more higher end comp because the shooting potential with him is very intriguing with his ball handling. But this draft overall, I think there's a lot of intriguing guys. It's not a strong draft by any means, but there's a lot of players in my mind who it's like when we redraft 5 years from now, it's going to look like a strong class. Does that make any sense? Even though there's a lot of guys with questions going in.
This is what I'm wondering, though. It's like if they're going to be good in 6 years, does it really matter the team that drafts them? Because the odds of being on that team in 6 years are pretty low, right? That's where I wonder, like, in terms of how do you balance your board and how do you balance who you draft for? It's like, if Dumbaya is going to be good in 2025, does that really matter to most teams? Probably not. That's the part I struggle with sometimes.
It's all about draft philosophy.
Yeah.
This is fun, guys. I'm glad we do this in person. It's great.
We can talk draft for out, honestly. Like this is just scratching the surface of our draft takes.
There's a lot of questions we had to delete and not have the ability to respond to, but maybe next time we'll do another mailbag.
That was fun.
So
yeah,
that's great.
Totally.
Yeah. Thanks, Danny. Thanks, John.
Yep. Bobby, shout out. I see you in person. Look at this guy over here. Hard at work.
And thank you for listening to the Ringer NBA show. Please give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, a thumbs up on YouTube. Tell your friends about the pod, and check out our NBA Finals coverage over on theringer.com. We're going to have tons of stuff over there, as well as updates coming to the NBA Draft Guide, stuff on our YouTube channel, tons of videos coming out. So check all that out. Special shout out to Bobby Wagner for producing today's podcast. Thanks again for listening. Peace.